Welcome to Raising the Bar with RebuttalPR, the podcast where we elevate the stories of the plaintiffs' bar and dive into the key trends shaping the civil justice system today. I'm your host, Ray DeLorenzi, and in each episode, we'll bring you insightful interviews with leading attorneys, expert perspectives on current legal events, and in-depth discussions on the issues that matter most. Now let's jump in.
What makes a plaintiff lawyer a plaintiff lawyer is because they have that empathy, they have that understanding, again, whether they represent one or thousands, that each case, each person, that case is significant and real and has impacted their life, and probably one of the most impactful things in their life they've had to deal with, and that's to be taken serious.
Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Raising the Bar with RebuttalPR. I'm your host, Ray DeLorenzi. Today I have the pleasure to be joined by Navan Ward, a principal with Beasley Allen, who specializes in mass torts. He's led some of the biggest mass torts, MDLs, in the last 10, 15 years. He's also a former president of the American Association for Justice. It's a real honor to have Navan with us. Again, thank you for joining the podcast.
Hey Ray, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So, as folks who have seen these episodes before, we dabble a bit in touching on the law and your practice, but really try to get to know the people behind these big cases. And, when people see your name on leadership appointments, and it's like, who really is Navan? And I know people who work with you closely have, get to know you well and know you're a tremendous lawyer and, an even better person. But in doing some research for this, I saw a quote that talked about how, your mother said that you arguing with your sister was what set the foundation for you to become a lawyer. So I'm curious, there's some folks who are like, I was born to be a lawyer, and some who are kind of like late bloomers and they figure it out after college and are like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. So what was your path to becoming a lawyer, and let alone a plaintiff's lawyer?
Yeah, well, Ray, I didn't have any. There was no one in my family that was a lawyer, so I really didn't know what this whole legal field was about, not to mention on the plaintiff side. My mom was a nurse. My dad, he was a meat market manager for Jewel Osco in Chicago. And again, we just didn't have anyone in our family that were lawyers. The whole perception of lawyers is that they like to argue. They argue a lot. And I definitely had a very good sparring partner growing up with my sister. Much to the dismay of my mother. And I guess, after one too many arguments between me and my sister, she threw that out there and started throwing it out there more and more, which kind of caught on. Lawyer, I don't know what lawyers do, but, I feel like I beat my sister on most of the arguments, so I figured I probably would be good at doing this for a profession.
So, you said you weren't surrounded by any lawyers. So, you're getting in arguments at home. Mom's like, you should be a lawyer. What became your frame of reference for who a lawyer is and how you would go about even doing that?
Yeah, well, representation matters. I mean, there was a popular TV show, LA Law, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and the character Blair Underwood, Blair Underwood played a character on there that I was gravitated to. I saw myself in him one day when I grew up. He appeared to be helping people, solving problems, and his colleagues had respect for him, and he seemed to be doing things the right way. And so that was my frame of reference, since I didn't know anyone in person. I think the first lawyer I met actually was in law school, where it was a building full of lawyers, professors. And so that was my frame of reference, coupled with, the seed that my mom had implanted in me with regards to my ability to argue. And I guess both of those put together has led me here.
I think to be a lawyer, particularly a trial lawyer, you have to have a certain level of confidence, or at least to project it. And so you go to law school, and again, your frame of reference is a TV show. How did that? And then you said you met your first lawyer in law school. What was that experience? Like? Did you feel like a fish out of water, or were you felt like you had a command of that I got this?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, you don't know what you don't know, right? And I'm pretty confident in most things. But I remember distinctly, the University of Alabama undergrad, I applied to a lot of law schools. I'm from Chicago. I was trying to really get back to Chicago. So I applied to 2 or 3 schools in Chicago, law schools in Chicago. And I remember very distinctly, it was about 6:02 p.m. I'm leaving the apartment with a couple of my roommates. We're about to go get something to eat. And I was, quite frankly, kind of hungry. But I remember very distinctly there was a call on our apartment phone. I picked it up, and it was a student at one of the law schools that I was applied to in Chicago. Essentially said they were on this committee. They are responsible for calling all incoming students or candidates and answer any questions that we may have. And again, I was trying to get out the door to eat a hamburger or something. So I definitely didn't know, what questions or any questions. I wasn't prepared to ask any questions, but I remember getting off the phone about 8:33 that night. And laying down on my bed thinking, wow, all of these questions I didn't even know I had were answered. And that actually gave me confidence. It kind of gave me a roadmap, what to look for. And it was so random. If I ran across that person today, I wouldn't know who he was, what he looked like. But what he did for me was so instrumental in helping me navigate at least those waters early. And so part of that is, throughout my career, I've done a lot of mentoring of certain groups. I've done law school interviews and mentoring in that capacity. And that's part of internally me requiring myself to do what was done for me, being able to reach back, and whether to law school, younger lawyer, or even colleague, whoever is reaching out for help, because I know how beneficial that was for me. And that also has helped me even, navigate those early waters, even the later waters that I deal with today.
So when on your journey, like you're in law school and you touch on bankruptcy and patents and property and, all sorts of stuff. And was even before that, they were like, I'm representing people who are injured. Like when did that click for you, or did it even click and it was kind of just a natural process? Or
Well, unfortunately, law schools do not focus on plaintiffs' law as much as they should. They just don't. I was fortunate at the University of Alabama, and this is I'm coming to realize and appreciate even more is a little more unique than others. But they did happen to have a future trial lawyer organization there, and I happened to join it and be a president of that student organization. So I had a concept of what was going on the plaintiff side, much more than probably many do now, and many do at possibly other law schools. We also had we had professors who did a good job of kind of talking about both sides, or not necessarily talking negatively about either side. Now the Career Service Center is heavily, inundated with defense or big law firms coming to interview. And as a result, I did start with an insurance defense firm very, very early on. And, I tell you, Ray, those Monday morning meetings where we discussed the new cases and how horrific those injuries were, but in the next breath, doing what they're supposed to do, figure out how to get the insurance company off. It was only so much of that it just didn't sit right with me. And so when the opportunity came for me to join Beasley Allen here, and even before coming here, from my professors and just from the general legal community, knowing how good of a reputation Beasley Allen had, it was a no-brainer to join the firm and to allow me to be on the plaintiff side. Now, with that said, Beasley Allen, we have about 5 or 6 different sections, and we do slightly different things, from class actions to single product liability to mass torts to nursing home back then. And so, the luck of the draw has luckily put me in a few sections to allow me to get a wide swath of experience on the plaintiff side. that in this totality is concentrated in the mass tort and single event product liability section. But the cards just happen to unfold that way. But definitely being able to really see through clerkships and the experience I had on the defense side is just something that I could not see myself continuing to do for all those reasons.
So were you like looking to get out of that world, or was it serendipitous that you got approached and said, hey, is this something that interests you?
There was a really, still is a really good attorney, and I don't even know if he knows this, but I was at the defense firm. We had just come from a workers' comp hearing, and kind of beat up pretty bad on the injured worker to limit the amount of injuries and or percentage of recovery he would get on whatever injury he had. I remember the way the people in the gallery were looking at me as I walked out, like, oh, how could you, and all that, as I mentioned earlier, those Monday morning meetings were really just starting to really, really get to me. And so I walked back in my office, and Walter McGowan, was in a plaintiff firm in Tuskegee, and he was in a mediation at that office. He was coming out of the bathroom. He was, a few years older than me. He definitely is a early mentor. I saw him. We exchanged pleasantries. He asked me, how am I doing? And, how most people ask, how you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm doing good, but he grabbed my arm and said, no, how are you doing? And it almost was like he knew that there was some conflict and some unhappiness and some just not doing what I believe that I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't know what I told him, but that did tell me that it was, I could not continue doing this. And then again, serendipity, the opportunity with Beasley Allen came shortly thereafter.
So I feel like every trial lawyer has, when they become a plaintiff's lawyer, they have, it's not necessarily their first case, but like an early case where it's all like, it clicks and it's like, this is what I have, I'm meant to do. And is there a case like that for you that really stands out in, your early days at Beasley Allen where it just all sung?
Yeah, it's there are a lot of moments like that, but I can think of I can think of one. It was a nursing home case, and I can't even remember if it was how successfully it resolved, if it resolved or not. I believe it did, but I remember doing a mediation. And of course, when you are in the fight, you're taking depositions, you're responding to discovery, you have the motion compelled battles, you have all of these different battles. You get to a point where you go to mediation. In the nursing home, we dealt with the family members because unfortunately our clients were deceased or passed away because of the negligence of the nursing home. And, we have in this particular one, we had about 2 or 3 of the family members there. And the family members were fairly consistent with going to visit their mom, the victim in this particular case. And we do our openings before we get to the meat of the mediation. And after our openings, and we're showing all the evidence that we've been able to find up to this point in time, the defendants gave their spiel, and we went to our separate rooms, our separate breaks. One of the daughters, just came to me and just with tears in her eyes said, thank you so much for explaining to us what had happened. They of course, we communicated with them throughout the time, but actually seeing, medical records on the screen where, different staff members went back in and filled in, the chart saying that they provided care for their mother, when in actuality, their time card showed that they were out on vacation. It made sense to them why what they were seeing didn't line up to how their mother was going downhill. And so whether we won or lost wasn't the point. The point was the family was so appreciative of having a lawyer on their side to find out the truth and to at least attempt to hold the wrongdoers accountable. The sincerity in which she had had thanked me, and how humble and how quite frankly she was saddened to see, in these cases you see in the medical records, the victim, the family member, your client, you see them go downhill. Saddened to see it, but it made sense, and it further convicted them for their decision to move forward with the lawsuit, and again make sure that this did not happen to someone else.
How, that experience on the insurance defense side, how does that, or, back then and maybe even today, inform how you approach cases, approach your clients, and also approach, how you, bring a case forward, and, how you, estimate what, the right damages are, how does that influence your approach?
Well, and again, I learned a lot from that insurance defense firm, and they weren't bad people. I learned a lot from them. They're good people. They did those attorneys did what they were tasked to do. And so I understand what they're tasked to do. I understand that out of all the cases I worked on, I don't really remember talking to the actual client. I remember more so interacting with the insurance company. So I understand that the defendants, regardless how inherently good or bad they are, they're having that barrier that they have to go through. I understand that in assessing the case that I have to definitely speak to the decision maker, the true decision maker, and provide whatever evidence that we're compiling that would speak to that true decision maker, and also just knowing that, hey, inherently there are some really good people on that side, and on a human, the good side regarding the defense side, and from a human standpoint. One of the early lessons I learned is, being able to have good relationships with your colleagues on the other side is instrumental in being able to, have the best result, not only for your side, but also for their side.
I want to pivot a bit and talk about your transition into the mass tort and MDL world, which is, some people have described it can be a bit clubby. And, not easy to break into. What was your process and journey to start doing that?
And people who think that aren't entirely wrong. The fortune of being a part of Beasley Allen, who has been not only doing single event product liability type cases for a long time, but doing mass tort. My law partner, Andy Burchfield, leads our mass tort section, and is well respected. So many of our law partners in this section and beyond are so well respected around the country, and so it helped me to open a few doors just with the relationship that others in my firm, as well as my firm's reputation, has with others around the country, but also putting in the time, putting in the work of not necessarily being in leadership for the first one or two or three, but still doing the grunt work, doing my part. Others being able to see me do my part, and eventually, when a couple of years got under my belt, and new litigations came about, being able to confidently raise my hand and say, "Hey, I want to be a part of this one." And then, once you are able to get a part, of course, you still have to do your part, and continue to, build relationships. It helps as you continue to grow. But the overall process for people who, hey, maybe doing criminal, maybe doing personal injury, maybe want to start entering into the mass tort world, it may not be as easy for them. And granted, there are some unique things about mass torts that are not natural to the normal or regular medical malpractice, personal injury, or what have you, other discipline that you may be doing. But there certainly are barriers. Unfortunately, there are certain barriers for others to get in. That's why there's a lot of organizations. One of the ones that started with Ben Crump, uh, Deandra Zimmerman, and others, called Shades of Mass, that really speaks to that barrier entry in mass torts. There's other organizations that somewhat do the same thing with regards to introducing this, so whether mass torts to other lawyers, so whether they want to get in on a entry level or all the way to leadership level, at least they'll have tools. And in addition to that, a lot of the judges nowadays are instituting initial orders that require more of a diversity among these leadership, so new voices can of course help and assist the successful litigation or whatever litigation it may be.
When you're doing, single event work, then you transition to mass torts, obviously in one instance you're representing, one person or maybe, a small group, and in a mass tort representing hundreds or thousands of people. How do you stay grounded in the experiences of the people you're representing when, leading a mass tort?
It is simple. I mean, for me, a couple things. Number one, I know that none of us are immune from either taking a pill, using a medical device, or driving down the street and a wrongdoer making a bad decision that hurts us. None of us are immune to that. And so I know that no matter if I'm representing one person or 1,000 people, their injury matters to them. And the fact that, unfortunately, my family had a very devastating loss in a product liability case, where, I had to make the call to close family member, and give them updates throughout the litigation. I know that feeling is what all of my clients feel. And I know it because I felt it, because it was my family member talking to a family member who lost his son. And so I never forget that. None of us are immune to it. And I think, to a certain degree, I'm willing to speak definitely for everybody at my law firm at Beasley Allen. And I think I'm safe to say what makes a plaintiff lawyer is because they have that empathy, they have that understanding. Again, whether they represent one or thousands, that each case, each person, that case is significant and real and has impacted their life, and probably one of the most impactful things in their life they've had to deal with, and that's to be taken serious.
In these mass torts, you have a group of lawyers who are appointed. You have lawyers who may have clients who are not appointed, could have multiple defendants, a lot of wrangling. And I saw you, in an interview you did, you talked about your leadership style as leadership by consensus. And I'm curious how you implement that in an MDL, also knowing that you got to, move it forward to trial or resolution. How do you get consensus? And also, is there a limitation on consensus?
Yeah. So, leadership, there's several, in my opinion, there's several different roles or capacities to leadership. Leadership, one is recognizing and understanding that the people you have in your room with you are very intelligent, capable, smart people. I may very well be leading or co-lead in this litigation, but in the next litigation 2 years from now, another one of my colleagues is a co-lead, and I'm following their direction. I understand that the highly skilled and intelligent people that always are around you, and it would be nonsense to not take their guidance and not hear the various different insight, recommendations, suggestions, and thoughts that they have. To ignore that would be foolish. But the other part of leadership is to be able to take that advice and the differing advice and make a decision on which route that you have to go. And that way everyone is heard, everyone is valued, everyone, is helping move the ball forward. Because, even if you choose, one direction over the recommendation of others, you're going to have to deal with, it's so helpful to know that opposing side, because you're going to have to deal with it from the defendants or some other form or fashion down the road, and being able to know, think about it, and be prepared to address it when it comes. Only again helps whatever litigation you're doing be more successful.
Rebuttal PR is a strategic communications firm that works exclusively with the plaintiffs bar to market their firms and win high-stakes litigation. For more than 15 years, the nation's leading plaintiff law firms have turned to Rebuttal PR to create winning communications campaigns, ranging from billion-dollar mass torts and class actions to positioning attorneys in their markets to grow their businesses and make a bigger impact. What sets Rebuttal PR apart is the unique skill set of our team, which combines legal knowledge with public relations expertise. Our team's ability to understand the facts and law of a case, as well as the media landscape, means we can develop compelling, narrative-driven campaigns that resonate with key stakeholders and support your firm and legal strategy. Visit our website, RebuttalPR.com, to learn more. Now back to our episode. Again, I'm joined here by Navan Ward, principal with Beasley Allen. Pivoting off that leadership philosophy that you have, you led AAJ a couple years ago, and you also, helped found and are a leader in Shades of Mass. Tell me about that work and sort of what you prioritized in those leadership positions to move the organization and their respective missions forward.
Ray, very early on in my time at Beasley Allen, I thought I'd immediately be going to trial, immediately be doing depositions, et cetera. And I did. But some of the first few things that I was tasked to do was go to a town hall meeting on arbitration and support those legislatures who were against arbitration. I saw how that support was so important, because with people can have the absolute horrific worst type of injuries. One of the worst things that I've had to do over the years is be able to see a case, see a family, see a victim that should have rights, but because the laws don't allow us to move forward with it, and tell them that I can't take your case because it's preempted. I can't take your case because their damage caps and the expenses of this would far exceed even the damage caps. You wouldn't get anything back from it. To be able to turn away people because the laws don't allow you to exercise your Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury. That's one of the most devastating things that I've seen throughout the years I've been in practice. And so the vehicle that I had through my firm's support is being able to be a part of organizations like the American Association for Justice, the largest plaintiff trial lawyer organization in the world, as well as trial lawyer organizations, both in the local areas that I've been in, the state areas, both in Alabama and Georgia, here now in Georgia, because those type of organizations, they're the ones that are fighting to keep our living, keep victims for being able to have a voice and be able to go to trial and hold the wrongdoers accountable. And so, having the support to be a part of those organizations. And then when, you're part of them, as anything, you want to do your part. And I guess in doing my part too much, it led me to a situation where I end up being an officer and then eventually the president there. And of course, that experience was an experience of a lifetime, being able to see things on a national level, from the U.S., Senate, Congress, U.S. House, the executive branch, being able to see up close and personal the people and the issues that were affecting client rights was very, very interesting. It was very telling. It made me definitely put everything in perspective of what the first assignment I had when I joined Beasley Allen by going to that town hall. It put everything in perspective with regards to how important that role is, and that every trial lawyer should be a part of their state and or national trial lawyer organizations such as AAJ and whatever state trial lawyer organization that you're in, because without them, our ability to protect our clients, and as I said before, none of us are immune from being hurt from many of these wrongdoers, ultimately protects us if either we or our families are in the situation, from being able to, again, hold the defendants, hold the wrongdoers accountable. So that may be a long-winded way of saying being a part of those organizations, it's part and parcel of what we do as attorneys. Because again, we can have the most horrific case with the facts that help our clients, hurt the defendants, but if we can't pursue it because of laws, because of rule changes, because of preemption, because of arbitration, because of the list goes on and on and on and on, then we're not able to do our job.
So while the list of challenges in terms of access to justice indeed goes on and on and on, unfortunately, what gives you optimism about access to justice over the next 10 years, let's say?
What gives me optimism is that after all we have faced up to this point, we are still here. The very nature of plaintiffs' work is that we fight with much less than our opponents, and we still win. The nature of our existence as plaintiff lawyers is to be creative in order to bring various different lawsuits in order to have access to justice and have success. And knowing that although there are so many obstacles currently in our way that have been our way in the past, and that will certainly be in our way in the future, knowing that good does always prevail. And with the people on our side, it's hard to lose with the type of people who truly believe and being on the right side. It's not just lawyers. I mean, at my time with AAJ, Ray, you definitely know you were a part of that organization, and I had to lean on insight that you had given on multiple occasions in order to better do my job. And so we have a team of lawyers and colleagues that span the universe, that help us, and with that coalition, I'm more than optimistic that whatever current challenges and future challenges that we face, we're going to still be here in 10 years.
I love ending on high notes, and I can't think of a higher note than that. So, Navan, I want to thank you so much for your time and generosity. Really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your story. Thanks for listening to this episode of Raising the Bar with Rebuttal PR. Don't forget to subscribe and follow to join us next time. See you then.